Feather Damascus challenge. How did it come about? Basically, it came about because the Blue Mountain Blacksmith Guild I started, shoot, how many years ago now? 5, 6 years ago. We are all about education, pushing each other to do things that may be impossible, but are worth trying, right? You know, and pushing each other out of our comfort zones. And I was trying to think of a challenge everybody could agree was super intriguing to try and accomplish. And it fell on the, let's try and make Canister Feather Damascus, you know, and make it so that you're not doing the normal stages that you have to stack it up, turn it, crush, make your crush W's, make your C's, blah, 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 all that stuff. You know, and I got those out of order, but either way. So yeah, that is the whole reason for us doing this. Everybody agreed that, wow, this is like kind of ridiculous, maybe a little impossible, but worth trying. Because if it does create a quote unquote fair representation of Feather Damascus, obviously it's not going to be exactly like Feather Damascus. But if you can clearly see a quill down the center with filaments coming off of it, it's going to be a Feather Damascus. You could call it Feather Damascus. Is it going to make the traditionalists happy? Absolutely not. But I've never really given a shit about making the traditionalists freaking happy. The fact is that if we're not trying to push ourselves farther in this industry, this craft, then what the hell are we doing it for? Why are we just sitting here copying everybody else? Why aren't we trying to figure out ways to do things that nobody's figured out yet? What are the restrictions that we're bound to within this challenge? Well, you must use a canister, canoe, vertical can, however you want to try and do it. I suggested to everybody that it's a vertical position, but it's on the smith to try it out. That's why we gave him so much time to do it. And you must use mesh powdered steel. You don't have to use the mesh powdered steel that I have here. You just have to use mesh powdered steel, right? I have 4% nickel powder and 1095. So we're going to be layering those together, right? And then however you decide how to get that quill in there, it has to be done with these powders. You can't like insert a quill and leave it in there and go, well, there's my quill. No, it has to be just mesh powdered steel, right? My thinking is this, is that I insert a barrier in my can, I layer my pieces in, my steel in, 1095, 1520, 1095, 1520, all the way to the top on both sides. And then I pull out that barrier. That was my pitch to everybody at my guild. And it got everybody thinking about different ways of doing it. Now, my reasoning for pulling it out is this, is that when you pull that out, it's going to pull up and then backfill down. Right? It's gonna flow into that void and fill that void. All right? And then once you get that set up and you cap your can, and then you go and you reduce it by 1/3. So that's why I'm starting out with a 3" by 3" square can. It's going to be 6 inches tall. It's so that when I compress it vertically to stick all them layers together, right, and solidify it vertically, when I turn on its side, it's not going to want to shift too much, right? If it shifts a little bit, no big deal. We're going to get some really cool patterning in there. And then reduce that from 3 inches to 2 inches. You've now reduced it by 1/3, and you should have a solid welded piece in there, right? So you take that now 2-inch by 2-inch can out, you take the jacket off of it, and you cut, you know, upwards of 1/4 inch, you know, of basically knife thickness. You can probably go 3/8 of an inch, you know, because when you're done grinding and cleaning it up, it's gonna, you know, you're gonna be right around 1/4 of an inch. And you however you need to do that. I'm gonna set it up vertically in my horizontal cut saw, and we're gonna slice it down just like we do when we're cutting a twisted Damascus, to then take that twisted mosaic to take the internal pattern and bring it out to the outside. I'm gonna cut it just like that, but it's gonna be just a slice right there, and then you etch it, right? And if it's like, wow, okay, yeah, that looks like a feather, then you take that piece and you make a dagger out of it. I'm trying to go for something that really represents a feather. This is why I don't think that if you can get it to look like a feather, nobody's gonna have a problem with it. I mean, they will, because you're cutting down the amount of time, for one, you're cutting down the amount of risk, for 2, and you're allowing it to be available to everybody, for 3. Like, there are people that spend decades working in Damascus that fail at feather Damascus, or that spend decades working in it and have perfected traditional feather Damascus. So take a can, put your powder in it, form your quill, cap it off, squeeze it down, take the can off, and slice it. Bam, that's it. This is why we gave people 10 months to do it. I think it's doable. I think it'll give a fair representation of feather Damascus. I already know it's not going to be accepted by a lot of people, and I'm fine with that. So if you're one of those, just know that I don't fucking care. And if you're not one of those, pick it up, make your can, and have fun. The other thing too on this is it must be repeatable, right? I'm not saying you're gonna get the same thing every time. You have to be able to do that process, bam, and get the same effect. You know, press down, turn up, square it out, reduce it by 1/3, open it up, slice it off, bam, bam, and hold them next to each other and go, yeah, all right, slightly different, but that's feather Damascus. That is feather Damascus. That's the whole point of this, all right, is to streamline this process, to make it quicker, simpler, and available to everybody. I'd like to see what you come up with if you decide to take on the Canister Feather Damascus Challenge. It's going to be outstanding. I'm going to love it. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of freaking prep. Really is. And I'm all for it. Let's go. Let's do it. You know, it's like, let's get on with it.